Hi, Wellsville and beyond. This is Mrs. Brown. I teach fourth grade science and math and writing. I also love reading. So I am going to be sharing a story with you guys that's from the tall tale genre. Tall tales, we think of Paul Bunyan, we think of John Henry, and one of the tall tales that I'm going to be sharing today is Clever Beatrice. Clever Beatrice is about a little girl who is a trickster. There are a lot of trickster genre characters around the world. Anansi the spider from Africa, Loki in Scandinavian folklore, as well as Brer Rabbit in the American South. Just to name a few. So here are a couple other examples. We have Flossie and the Fox, and that is a trickster story as well. The fox thinks he's a trickster, but Flossie outsmarts him. And Tops and Bottoms, which is a great trickster story about a rabbit and a bear. That is very fun. So I'm going to be reading the tall tale Clever Beatrice, and I want to give one special shout out to my fourth graders at Wellsville. Hi guys, good to see you. And one other nod to another tall tale that I left at school, which is called Swamp Angel by Paul Zelinsky, which she's a giant like Paul Bunyan and goes on, has lots of adventures as well. So today we're going to be focusing on Clever Beatrice. This story happens in Michigan and a little nod to Wisconsin and Canada there. Around the Great Lakes, there are some characters on this map, which I'm loving, from the story. Here's our main character leaning against his cabin, and his brothers are spread out across Wisconsin and Canada and Michigan. Okay, so here we have Clever Beatrice by Margaret Willey, illustrated by Heather Solomon. Sure, she was little, but Beatrice loved riddles and tricks, and she could think fast on her feet. Sharp as a tack, her mother said. The neighbors would wave to her as she passed by and say to each other, "She's a clever girl, that one, Beatrice." One day, her mother put a bowl of porridge in front of Beatrice and said, "Eat, my girl, but not too fast. This is the end of our porridge." Her chin trembled as she sat down to her own small bowl. Beatrice ate slowly, thinking of how she might help her mother. Finally, she said, "It is time for me to go out into the far north woods and get some money." Her mother sighed. "There are only two ways to get money up here," she said. "One way is to cut down the trees with the lumberjacks, but that is not work for little girls." "What is the second way?" asked Beatrice. "There's a giant on the other side of the woods," her mother said. "A rich giant who loves to gamble on his own strength." She sighed again. "But you're only a little girl, you." "Is the giant smart?" Beatrice asked. "When you are a rich giant," her mother said, "you do not have to be smart." Beatrice thought about this. The very next day, she kissed her mother goodbye and walked away from the village into the deep woods, through a forest of white pines and copper hills, farther than she had ever walked before. Finally, she came to a wall of pine trees at the bottom of a hill where she watched some lumberjacks sawing down the biggest tree of all. Just as the tree fell down, whoosh, bang, the lumberjacks called out, "Day's over," and waved goodbye to Beatrice. Beatrice waved back and then kept walking all the way up the hill. At the top was a huge log cabin. Beatrice found the giant sitting against the side of his cabin, taking in the late afternoon sun. She came straight away beside him and said in her loudest, bravest voice, "Good afternoon, Mr. Giant, sir. I have come to make a bet with you." The giant opened one eye and looked down at Beatrice. "What kind of bet from such a little girl?" he asked. Beatrice took a step closer and made a fist no bigger than a walnut. "I bet 10 gold coins," she said, "that I can strike a blow harder than you." What is she doing? The giant thought this was very funny. He stood up and laughed, showing off his height and belly. Then he made a huge fist with his own hand and held it next to Beatrice's. "What should we strike with our mighty fists to make our bet?" he asked. Beatrice looked at the giant's cabin and pointed to his front door, a door as big as a boat, made of long planks of pine. "Let us strike against your front door, we two. The hardest blow will win the bet." "Oh, you are making a big mistake, you," the giant chuckled. He walked over to his front door, swung his arm back, and then let his fist fly hard against the wood. Kerblam! The walls trembled, the windows rattled, the door groaned on its brass hinges. The giant turned and grinned at Beatrice, showing all his teeth. "Your turn," he said. Beatrice stepped up to the front door, turned to the giant and said, "Don't worry if I break your door, Mr. Giant, sir. See what happened to that pine tree down there?" "What tree?" the giant asked. Beatrice pointed to the broken tree down at the bottom of the giant's hill and said, "That great big knocked over one there." "You did that?" the giant asked. "Well, I thought you might need a tree for your new door." The giant frowned and scratched his head. "Maybe I don't want a new door," he said. "Maybe I like my old door." "I'm sorry, Mr. Giant, sir," said Beatrice. "I'm only trying to win the bet." She raised her fist at the door. "Never mind you," the giant cried. "Don't break my door. I would rather just give you the money." Beatrice said, "If you insist." She's pretty smart, pretty clever. The giant gave her 10 gold coins. He was not one bit happy about it. He walked outside the cabin behind Beatrice, shaking his head. "Let us have another bet, we two," he said. "We will go down to my well and carry back some water for my stove. If you can carry more water than me, I'll give you 10 more gold coins. But if I carry more than you, you must give me back my money." "I accept," said Beatrice. When they reached the well, the giant filled many buckets with water, 6 on each arm. But Beatrice took a big rope from beside the well and began to wrap it around the well, around and around. "What are you doing?" asked the giant. "I'm not going to bother carrying those buckets one by one," Beatrice said. "I would sooner pull out the whole well." "But if you pull out my well," the giant cried, "then I will not be able to get water for my stove." "I can't help that, Mr. Giant, sir," Beatrice said. "I'm only trying to win the bet." "Leave the well where it is," the giant said. "It is not worth losing my water." Beatrice said, "If you insist." The giant gave Beatrice 10 more gold coins. But he was even more unhappy about it. He scratched his head and tugged his beard, and then led Beatrice farther into the woods until they came to a clearing where a huge iron bar lay on the ground. "Let's have another bet, we two," the giant said, pointing to the bar. "If you can throw that thing farther than me, I'll give you 10 more gold coins. But if you cannot throw it as far as me, you must give me back all my money." Beatrice said, "I accept." The giant picked up the iron bar and stood in the middle of the clearing. He stopped, turned around twice, let out a bellow, and threw the bar a good 200 feet into the air. Whoosh! Wham! It fell to the ground. Then he looked at Beatrice with a smile. "Your turn," he said. Beatrice was too small to even pick up the iron bar. She walked over to where it lay on the ground and crouched over it, thinking hard. Then she stood up and pointed to the east and asked the giant, "Do you know anyone who lives in Canada?" "I have some brothers in Sault Ste. Marie," the giant replied. "They like the wind and the snow up there." Beatrice turned to face Canada and cried out in her loudest voice, "Brothers of Mr. Giant, I am going to throw this iron bar your way. Watch your heads." "No, no," said the giant. "Don't throw the bar that way. I do not want to get in trouble with my brothers." "What about this way?" Beatrice asked, pointing west. "I have some brothers over that way, too," the giant said. "They work in the copper mines over by Wisconsin." Beatrice faced west and cried, "Brothers of Mr. Giant, I am going to throw this bar your way. Watch your heads." "Not that way," cried the giant. "I do not want to get in trouble with those brothers either." Beatrice pointed south, toward Big Bay de Noc. "I have some brothers who fish in that bay," the giant exclaimed. Beatrice faced south and cried, "Brothers of Mr. Giant, I'm going to throw this bar your way. Watch your heads." "Not in the bay," the giant cried. Beatrice pointed north. "But if I throw the bar back this way, it might land on the roof of your cabin." The giant held his head. "I'm afraid I have run out of places to throw the bar," said Beatrice. "Never mind," said the giant. "It is not worth getting into trouble with any of my brothers." "Then I've won again, Mr. Giant, sir," Beatrice said. "Here, here," "Take the rest," said the giant. He gave her his last 10 gold coins in a silver bag. "Thank you, Mr. Giant, sir," Beatrice said. "Go home, little girl," the giant said. "You have cost me a fortune. But at least I didn't have to make a new door." "That's true," Beatrice agreed. "And I still have my water, and I didn't get into trouble with my brothers." The giant sat back down in the sun beside his cabin, smiling to himself, feeling lucky. Do you think he was lucky? Beatrice backed away, taking slow steps. Only when she was far along the path from his cabin did she break into a run. Only when she was in sight of her mother's cabin did she let out a yell. She held up the silver bag with the gold coins inside, waving to her mother. She could not wait to tell her how she had bet 3 times against the strength of a giant and 3 times won. Her mother would say that Beatrice was the most clever girl in the whole North Woods. Beatrice could not wait to hear it. So that's the story of Clever Beatrice. Here's our map again. You can see the brothers. There they are in Wisconsin. And here's the giant with his brothers fishing down here. And up north in Canada. I hope you enjoyed our story with Clever Beatrice. And I hope that you're enjoying some stories on your own. I can't wait to see you all again. And I will hopefully be able to read you another story soon. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.